hello to this very special episode of Overthink, this podcast. My name is Kyle. I'm going to be doing this one solo. This is a surprise episode, so if it caught you off guard, it should. So since the election's around the corner, the debates are happening, I just thought that I would do a little something that surrounds that topic, a little tidbit for you guys to wet your whistles before we elect our next president. I have a story about Ebbie Tolbert, and if you don't know who she is, that is on you, but if you stick around, you'll know a whole lot more. In mid-September 1920, thousands of women lined up at polling places all around the city of St. Louis to ensure that they could finally make their voices heard on Election Day. The 19th Amendment had been officially ratified a month prior, giving women the voting rights they had been pushing for since 1848. 125,000 women registered, far exceeding the local election officials' predictions. One voter was the amazing Ebbie Tolbert, an elderly African-American woman registered to vote in the city's 7th Ward on September 14th, 1920. Now you're probably asking yourself, who is she? Get to the point, Kyle. Well, I'm getting there, alright? She is a woman of 1,000 names. She is listed as Phoebe Talbot in the 1900 census, Eva Talbot in the 1910 census, Ebbie Tolbert in the 1920 census, Ebbie Tolbert on her December 1928 death certificate, and Hattie Tolbert in her January 1929 burial notice in the St. Louis Argus. She's noted in every census as being illiterate, which probably explains why her name is so inconsistent across the board. Tolbert was also a woman of 1,000 birth dates. The 1900 census lists her at 90. The 1910 census lists her at 104. And the 1920 census somehow has her only at 102. Two newspaper stories written about Tolbert in 1920 and 1922 put her age at 113 and 114 respectively. Her 1928 death certificate lists her as 120 years old. Despite all the discrepancies, one thing is true. Ebbie Tolbert was born a slave in North Carolina sometime between 1807 and 1818. Reports written about Tolbert in papers during the 1920s consistent in their claims that she was a slave for more than 50 years and that she had at least 5 different owners across the South. By the 1860s, she was in Vicksburg, Mississippi when she ran away from her owner before Union troops took that city in 1863 and found her way to St. Louis, where she lived ever since. When Congress ratified the 19th Amendment in 1920, Tolbert was living at 313 Gratiot Street, relying on the kindness and charity of her neighbors for support. Tolbert had lived a very, very hard life. That kind of goes without saying, I guess, but she wasn't about to waste the opportunity to be heard. On September 14th, she walked herself down to her polling place and entered her name into the lists as a registered voter. Many newspapers were running stories about women registering to vote for the first time, and the St. Louis Star and Times ran a piece on Tolbert on September 15th. The story makes clear that she cherished the right to vote and believed that women had the political power to make things right. She told the reporter, "The world isn't like it used to be, and it may take the women to make things better." Even though we don't know all the details of Tolbert's life, her story is a powerful one. It reminds us of the many years of struggle that women, particularly women of color, went through to gain the right to vote. Ebbie Tolbert was born around 1807 and spent 50 years as a slave. She gained her freedom at about age 56, and she lived long enough that at about age 113, she walked to the St. Louis polling station and cast her vote.